because not so much because he's closed or he doesn't want to remember a traumatic moment. It's really because he refuses to be determined by that or depicted as that. Hi,
Hi, Cosima. How are you?
I'm well. Cosima. Her name is,
Cosima. Okay.
yeah,
I
Cosima.
figured it might be a butcher job by me.
No, 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 it's fine.
Where in the world are you?
I'm in London. I live in London, but I grew
Okay.
up in Italy. And so that's why I kind of made this film because I speak Italian. In fact, I was born very near Andrea Bocelli in terms geographically. So we kind of spoke the same language and the
Ah,
same dialect. So
interesting.
yeah.
You know, it's a fascinating documentary. I don't think there's ever been access to him like
Mhm.
this in so many ways. I believe you worked with him previously on something. I'm curious where this relationship begun with you and Andrea and how far back it dates.
We don't, well, I hadn't met him before making this film.
Aha.
Not at all. But I was saying, the fact that I spoke with the same kind of Tuscan accent as him, and I could share the sense of humor because, I went to the local school and kids out there in that rural part of Italy, it's a very kind of open society. Everyone goes to the same schools, and there's no such thing as private school, public school. And and in Italy, where you come from, defines your sense of identity quite a lot, more than class or more than anything.
Mm,
It means that the wiring for the sense of humor and the attitude to life is quite influenced from the places you grow up in. It's a kind of regional attitude and all of that. So when I met him, and also my name, Cosima, was the
mhm.
same name as one of his best friends who's called Cosimo.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so he was relaxed, and we filmed over a long period of time. We took like 5 days every month for about 6 months.
Hmm.
And so every time we saw each other, we were more, well, I was always quite relaxed with him, but also he's a very open person, but he became used to the crew and he became more open and more willing to show us all aspects and talk about his life in a way, giving it enough time. The other thing with Andrea is that he is bombarded by the media with interviews and
Hmm.
he's brilliant at it, but he wants to do it very fast. So, when I told him, look, we're gonna take a bit of time to do these interviews, and he was like, really? God, max 45 minutes each time. And that's a lot because usually when he does his press junkets, he's 15 minutes, 15 minutes, 15 minutes. So he's brilliant at sound bites. He speaks with incredible clarity. And he was
Hmm.
determined to do the whole thing in Italian because he speaks a beautiful Italian. He's very educated, very clear and particular in the way he expresses himself in the kind of purest Tuscan tradition. He doesn't there's no umming, ahhing. It's just clear Italian, Tuscan
Mm.
Italian, which is like the purest form of Italian, they say. And so he enjoyed it after a while. And we spoke a lot about not just his upbringing, his childhood, but also about the passion he has for music and opera, what influenced that along the way,
Hmm.
and in his household, music is alive. He's constantly singing, and so capturing the atmosphere of his household as well was important.
Yeah, do you feel like you had free reign for everything? Like you could touch on anything that you wanted to sort of discover? Or was there some things that he didn't maybe want to go through? Because I felt like really all questions were answered in a lot of ways. Like I don't know if I would think as a viewer that there's anything I would need to
I
know
think
that wasn't
you
touched.
know, I felt they were both him and Veronica were really, really open.
Yeah.
Um, And they were like, this is the time we're going to do it. We know we're going to finally just be open about who we are. And it takes some courage to just be open about who you are because we all, however famous, however, it takes some amount of courage to just display your life. I mean, I wouldn't let someone come into my house and just capture
Hmm.
You
It's
know,
both.
I mean, it can be intrusive. I mean, we try to do it in a respectful way. And I mean, he really wanted to share his love for music, his love for the family, his love for his old childhood friends who've given him a strong sense of self and confidence, who've been there from the word, from forever. He hasn't changed this. He's added to his friendship group because now his friendship group, includes all sorts of incredible people.
Yes.
But he's still very faithful to the original friendship group when he was young.
Hmm.
He said the other day in an interview we were doing together, I am so proud of two things. I haven't lost a single tooth that I own in my mouth, and I have the same childhood friends I've always had.
Mm.
So he's proud of that. He's proud of being still attached, and he's never had a fight with them. He's never had a
Wow.
fight with anyone. He says, I've never fallen out with, my friends, which is great,
Yeah,
really.
that's kind of amazing in this world, like that we
Uh,
live in, to think about that. One question I did have, and it's sort of answered in a way throughout, but I always wondered in a sense that maybe you spoke to Andrea about this too, like, his blindness in a sense. Is there a belief that if he never had that accident and especially with I was didn't even know the soccer ball thing, but would he have become the person he is in a sense? And sort of your interpretation of it from what you know about him. Do you think if he didn't have the blindness, if he was able-sighted, would he have accomplished what he have accomplished? I do wonder if that would have altered, it would have been the same result in his life, whether he was able seeing or not.
well, that's an interesting question, and I suppose no one can answer that. The only thing is that he's got this attitude of always focusing on the positive. So he
Hmm.
wasn't going to let that stop him. He wasn't going to and his mother really transmitted that to him. She really gave him the kind of energy and determination not to let this hinder him and stop him in any way. He didn't want to chat so much about that. I mean, we did speak about it, and it comes out, and he tells us the story of the accident. But that happened later on in the shooting, because not so much because he's closed or he doesn't want to remember traumatic moment. It's really because he refuses to be determined by that or depicted as that.
Hmm.
He wants to, and he should, and he is respected and known for this incredible gift, which is his voice. And so he's determined to celebrate and share that gift and look after it, because also he's quite modest. He says, oh, I was just born with the gift of the voice, and I'm just,
Hmm.
he's very humble like that, but actually he's really working at it. He is disciplined. He is, practicing every day. He's not drinking alcohol. He's really following a very healthy diet, Mediterranean diet, never indulges, maybe every now and then with his friends, but we see him having a dinner party with his friends with wine and carbonara, and pasta. But
Hmm.
it's not an everyday thing. He is getting enough sleep. He is every day waking up, testing his voice, and you can imagine when you have that. But every day he says he wakes up, he puts his feet on the ground, and then he belts out. I won't even do it because I have no voice. But he tries out the voice and he checks on it, almost like it's like a spirit in him, and he's like the messenger of this spiritual thing, his voice. And when he's got trouble with his throat or the voice is not quite up, then he gets really anxious.
Hmm.
And
We
then
saw that.
now he's learned to really handle, and he's really handling that through technique. So whilst when he started and he was young, he was really relying on his physical force. As he's got older and the pressure has mounted on him, he's had moments, and he's very open in the documentary about this, about the pressure of going in front of an audience, knowing that actually your technique is not perfect, and the panic he would feel.
Hmm.
And then he went back and learned it. And, he really now has the technique to rest on and warming himself up in the adequate way and breathing from the diaphragm like babies do, he says. Like babies, they know how to
Yes.
yell all day long and they have no problem with it. Whilst if we scream and yell, we're exhausted after 4 minutes, whilst he's got to really do it for a long, sustained period of time. And he's learned how to do that. It's a lot
Yeah.
to do with breath and how you project it and how you, I guess it's quite yogic, as
Yeah,
you're
the
breathing with your
diaphragm, as
body.
he mentions. I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, so this was an opportunity to really see life from the point of view of a tenor. I mean, there's not that many in the world anyway. It's quite a kind of unique profession.
Yes.
And to have a tenor who is famous enough to have a documentary financed, and so you're really led into this world of someone for whom music is really part of life and whose life depends on music in a way. He's living this parallel world, which is the world of sounds and music, in a way that maybe a person with sight doesn't inhabit because they're so distracted by things and
Hmm.
visuals. So maybe going back to your question, I wonder because he's someone who feels the room and who senses thing in a much more in a deeper way almost because he hasn't got the visual distractions. So all his friends, his childhood friends say, "Oh my God, Andrea knows when a beautiful woman enters the room." And I go, "Well, how?" He goes, "Oh, well, that he can tell from the reaction people have." I mean, this is Italy, obviously. So,
Yes.
but he can really tell a lot of things just from the way people are relating to each other in a room or in a conversation that maybe people with sight just don't capture anymore, they don't feel it because they've learned to ignore those instincts or
Yes.
those sensations. We are focusing on other things. So he's
So
focusing on another dimension.
So well said. I thought about that too. His senses are so much more in tune, especially acoustically. Another thing, you got a sense of, I mean, he mentioned at one point that he's been doing this job for years, I think 30
Yeah,
plus
30
years.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
30 plus years. Do you sense that he prefers to slow down, or is this someone that can keep going now with the renewed sense of purpose that he has with his wife and daughter,
Yeah.
and the
Well, he's
enjoyment
always
of
saying,
performance?
he's always saying, "Oh, I'm quite lazy." And Veronica's, the one who's given me the charge. And before
Mhm.
meeting her, I was really ready to retire. And then she came along with her energy and her youth and her desire to experience the potential. And, he was a little depressed before he met her. And then he does acknowledge that it was her energy that kind of pulled him back out and energy and the energy of Veronica is incredible. I mean, I wish I was married to Veronica, frankly.
Yes, I mean she's a wife, and I mean in so many ways, just such a easygoing but determined individual. It's a great
Yes,
combination that we see from her, and I,
yes,
I think she was one of the more interesting people we saw in this documentary because you don't really see her in the spotlight, but here you got to see the
yeah,
woman behind the man, and I think she's such a key to what he does in his life. It was
yeah.
really interesting and impressive to see sort of her thinking, her perspective. And I also wanted to ask you with this question, the younger Veronica, I was blown away. I mean, she's a prodigy in a sense, but someone,
Oh, you mean Virginia, the daughter?
oh, Virginia, yeah, yes,
Yeah.
yes, sorry, I know two
Oh
V's.
wow, yeah, Virginia. And to have
Virginia,
captured her because
yes.
we captured this moment, and it's a real documentary moment of her about to perform in Madison Square Gardens.
Mm,
She was only 11 at the time.
wow.
She was really nervous because she saw the amount, it was a lot of people there. And she was really nervous. And it was so interesting. And, Veronica's saying, "Well, why are you nervous just because there's so many people out there? 2,000 people is the same as 17,000 people. What are
Hmm.
you worried about?" And she's like, "No, there's so many." So, and the way we edited it is we've just heard about how Andrea has tackled his anxiety. His anxiety, how he tackled it when he was younger. Because performing is not an easy thing. Let's face it, especially with singing these very high notes. And anyway, so we captured the moment that the lead up to this performance, her first performance, Virginia's first performance in Madison Square Gardens, and her conquering her fear and coming off that stage having really done a great job. And it was a
Yes.
magical moment. It's one of those magical moments. And that's never going to happen again because already now she's so much more confident. But that night, yeah, I really loved capturing that. It was a kind of, there was something so, the humanity behind it, the fear, conquering your fears. And really the film celebrates life. And, Andrea wanted people and I wanted people to come out of it with a sense of optimism and self-belief and to dream and to believe in that dream and to make it happen.
Yeah, I was just so impressed. Her English is so perfect too. I mean, there's one of the most impressive young people I've seen, and
Oh,
just in
me too.
general.
Me too. She's super talented and speaks perfect American English because she's
Wow.
had, yeah.
Did you find out how she got that American English? Because I always
She,
thought of it.
they had American nannies help them on the road, and
Uh-huh.
so she kind of grew up in a kind of bilingual house, which is such an asset. Now they have a Mexican, really talented young girl, a woman
Uh-huh.
who's teaching Virginia fluent Spanish, so she's going to be utterly trilingual. Give it a couple of years.
No question about that. Another thing as I wrap up here too, um, what is something coming into this? I mean, you have to be so open-minded because you don't know how this story ends in a sense. I don't know if you can predict how this sort of documentary ends, at what point you stop to. What is
Mhm.
something you learned about Andrea throughout this process that maybe you didn't know or didn't realize, or maybe change your perspective on him? Because I'm sure there's so many things you pick up spending so much time, but is there something you really took away that stays with you about him? Um,
I
throughout
think
this experience.
Yes, I think it was extraordinary to spend time with him and realize how important your inner voice is and your mental health and your attitude to life. So, not all of us are born with an extraordinary voice, but we are all born with a set of cards in our life. And the key I got from it is like really embrace the gift of life and really live it to celebrating that and not being, not getting too depressed about when things don't go quite so well, and but see it as an opportunity, learn from that and be resilient. The fame only came to him when he was in his 30s, and he
Hmm.
had a lot of knocks before that. I mean, he was born with a poor eyesight. He had a lot of operations, and then he had this accident. He lost his sight, but he really had the passion. He had a dream, and he believed in it, and sooner or later, it all worked out for him. So that self-belief was a really great thing to witness.
No question. And you really document it in a perfect way. It's so easily to watch and digest, and it's moving constantly, this documentary. Just fantastic work all around. I can't wait. I'm glad this is in theater, so people will be able to see it September 21st, I think worldwide in theaters. So it's a fantastic accomplishment. I can't wait to see what's next from you too, after this one. So thanks for bringing this to life.
Thanks. Thank you. Lovely to meet you and
You too.
chat.
Thank you, Cosima. Appreciate
Bye.
the time.
Bye. Bye, Jim.